Question number 2, Anas Sarwar.
Can the First Minister confirm how many investigations into bullying by current or former SNP Cabinet Ministers there have been, if those investigations have concluded, and what the outcomes of those investigations are?
First Minister.
I was indeed asked this question by journalists over the course of the last few days, and as I made clear to journalists, I am not in a position to get into these issues because there are very considerable legal data protection issues that I am bound by. Governments have a duty of transparency, but governments also have a duty to abide by the law on privacy and on data protection. A complaint, by its nature, includes personal data of both the complainer and the person complained about. This personal information can only be made available out with the narrow confines of the complaint if there is a lawful basis within GDPR to do so. That is UK legislation, not legislation passed by this Parliament. So yes, there is a duty of transparency, but there is also a duty to abide by the law. Finally, on this, Presiding Officer, Anas Sarwar should perhaps confer with his deputy, Jackie Bailey, because she, of course, was one of the co-authors of a report published by a committee of this Parliament last year, of course, into complaints about another former minister. And I'm going to quote from that report. The committee believes that the fundamental principle of any complaints process is that confidentiality must be observed. The Scottish Government has a duty to ensure the confidentiality of the process. Confidentiality of an investigation is of paramount importance. That's what the committee of this Parliament said, and of course those are the constraints that I answer these questions within.
Anas Sarwar.
That committee also found the First Minister guilty of misleading this Parliament. I don't think she should forget that either. But no one is asking the First Minister to reveal confidential details. What they're saying is to reveal the outcome of that investigation. So the First Minister didn't answer the questions. Let me quote, "We have to lead by example, we have to show leadership, and we have to make it very clear that those that work in this Parliament, those that work elsewhere in society, need the fullest protection from bullying." That's SNP leader Ian Blackford at Westminster in regards to the Priti Patel case. And I agree with him. After the allegations against Alex Salmond, and then Derek Mackay, and the bullying findings against UK Government ministers, we need to restore trust in politics. And that must start with complaints being handled transparently. So I ask the First Minister again, will she today confirm the outcome, not the personal details, the outcome of the bullying investigation into Fergus Ewing? Can she confirm if there have been any other investigations into current and former Scottish ministers? And will she commit to make public the conclusion of any and all complaints upheld against ministers in this government?
First Minister.
Well, firstly, I and this government take any complaints about any ministers very seriously. That is evidenced by both the development and the publication of the updated procedure for handling complaints made by civil servants, either about current or about former ministers. So this is not a question of any complaints, if they are raised, not being investigated. But that has to be done within the law. I have to abide by the law. I have a duty to uphold the law, and there are laws here on privacy and data protection that apply. And if I answer questions on this, I will be at risk of breaching that law, and I'm sure next week or the week after that, Anas Sarwar or his colleagues, of course, will be asking for me to be held to account for doing that. So these are serious issues. They have to be treated seriously, but they also have to be treated within the confines of the law that applies.
Let me be very clear. I'm not asking for the data. I'm not asking for the personal details of the person making the complaint. What I'm saying is the public deserve to know the outcome of an investigation relating to ministers in the SNP government. That's an issue of public transparency. Because the fact that Nicola Sturgeon can't escape from is that her government and this SNP operate in a culture of secrecy and cover-up. It's not the first time we've heard it today. Cover-up when it comes to allegations against ministers. Cover-ups when it comes to the awarding of government ferry contracts. Shamefully cover-ups when it comes to the deaths of children in hospital, and a culture that has contempt for journalists and anyone who dare ask a difficult question of this First Minister. One standard for them and another standard for everybody else. One where an SNP MP can avoid being disciplined for sexual harassment and instead lead a parliamentary debate on the subject. In 2003, Nicola Sturgeon said of the then Scottish Government, "They have the arrogance of a party which has been in power for too long and no longer believe the common values of decency, fairness and honesty apply to them." I can't think of a more appropriate way of describing this government led by Nicola Sturgeon. After 15 years of being in government, why does Nicola Sturgeon think it's one standard for her and another standard for everyone else?
First Minister.
Firstly, Presiding Officer, the people of Scotland have had two opportunities in just a year to decide whether they think my party has been in government for too long or not, and I think their answer on both occasions was pretty clear. But these issues are important, Presiding Officer. So firstly, on issues on the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, of course, I'm so opposed to transparency there. I've actually, with my government, established a full, independent, statutory public inquiry into these issues. On questions from journalists, I stand to be corrected if somebody can challenge me on this, but I've probably answered more questions from journalists over the past couple of years than any other political leader anywhere on these islands. Thirdly, I, in my view, ended up the subject of investigations over the last couple of years because I wasn't prepared to cover up accusations against a former minister. The fact is, though, I have to abide by the law. All parties, whether I like it or not, have rights under data protection law that protects their personal data, and that includes the fact or the detail of complaints. Processing of that data can, under the law, only occur if there is a lawful basis to do so. So that is the legal position. Yes, governments have a duty of transparency, and I take that very seriously. But governments also have a duty to abide by the law on privacy and data protection. And if we breach that law, Anas Sarwar would be one of the first standing up here to accuse us of doing so.